Joining me now is Niels Maness, a faculty member in the horticulture department. Niels, can you tell me about this really interesting work you're doing with the cilantro?
Yes, well, the version you see here is actually coriander. Cilantro about mid-May or into June will start to flower. The actual leaves that we recognize as cilantro you see down in this part, and the bolt or the feathery leaf part is what's sending up the flower heads and what will produce the spice coriander.
Okay.
So cilantro is very sensitive to heat, and that's why about mid-May or June or so you're going to have a problem with this bolting.
Okay.
Now, what we're growing cilantro for is as an extraction crop in Oklahoma. We don't usually think of Oklahoma as a cilantro state.
Right.
But growing it as an extraction crop, we can cut the crop at about an inch or so above the ground.
Okay.
Mechanically. So we're not involving a lot of hand labor.
Okay.
And we can dry that crop and extract just a portion of the compounds from it. That stabilizes the flavor, and it makes possible to produce a shelf-stable dry cilantro. Right now, you can't get a product that really tastes like cilantro.
Right.
That is shelf-stable.
Okay.
So,
and what would be some of the uses for that?
Mostly as a flavoring.
Okay.
We're specifically interested in producing a cilantro herb that could go into products like potato chips.
Okay.
Right now, you can't get a cilantro flavored potato chip because you can't stabilize the herb. I'm working with a company called Ambient Temperature Extraction Partners, or ATEP.
Okay.
And we have perfected a procedure to slightly extract the compounds from the herb and stabilize the flavor.
Okay. Now, just a little bit of growing tips for homeowners. As we mentioned, the plant's gonna bolt in the heat, so you either have to plant it really early, get a spring crop, but you can also plant a fall crop, correct?
Yes, you can plant it in the fall. You're going to want to wait until your soil temperatures decline some. Usually here in the Bixby area, we're talking mid-August to early September. It will grow. Normal harvest for that for extraction, or you can of course pick the leaves off and use them at home anytime. But normal harvest for extraction would be about late October, depending on when a freeze hits. Cilantro is tolerant of cold temperatures, and it will take a light frost.
Okay. Well, let's look at some of the basil research that you have going on. Well, before we look at the basil, can you just tell me a little bit about the importance of extracting from plants?
Sure. Extraction of the plants is simply taking out the chemical compounds which make them up. With the basils, we look at chemotypes on the basils. Some produce more chemicals than others, but the chemicals themselves are valuable components. It's not unlike oil refining, except we're growing it and it's green. It's a renewable resource.
Okay, and a lot of people are interested in using these naturally produced additives for foods or for odoring.
There is a large interest today, and I would predict tomorrow and the day after that for naturally produced flavors, antioxidants, colorants. It runs the whole gamut. So basils fall into very nicely into extraction work.
Okay, well let's look at some of the different kinds of basil that you have growing.
This one is Mrs. Burns lemon basil. It's a fruity, scented basil, and it falls into that general category of basils. Lemon basils, there's lime basils. Typically, those two citrusy type flavors and aromas you get in that classification of basils.
Okay.
There's another basil over here, and this one is called Ethiopian basil.
Has a very different scent.
Very unique scent to it. It's called a regional basil because this one's also known as Egyptian basil.
Okay.
Typical basils of a region
Okay.
would fall into this category. This particular basil is very high in a compound called eugenol.
Okay. And what's that used for?
Eugenol is important as an antimicrobial, as well as some antioxidant properties.
Okay. It's a little bit different kind of application than what we normally think of from basil.
It is.
Ah.
The third type of basil is your typical, what people generally recognize basil for. We call this a pesto type basil. It's when you smell it, you think Italian cooking.
Absolutely. Making me hungry.
The chemical compounds in these types of basils are characteristic of the pesto type basils, and there's commercial interest in those chemicals as well.
Okay.
Little luol is one of them, which is it's a nice flavorant. Fair as an antioxidant, but there's better natural antioxidants out there.
And by using the flavor and extraction, we're able to get more of a consistent flavor. Would that be some of the ideas behind extracting?
When we extract this leaf, we develop just the essence of that crop. When you smell it, when you taste it, we develop that. So yes, you can in a concentrated form, you can regulate how much goes into a food product.
Okay.
In some cases, some of these crops, basils as well as some others, can be used in cosmetic applications, and all of those you need to have a regulated an ability to put in exactly what you want when you want within the process. So that's a huge advantage for us. Now this leaf, we can also dry this, extract a portion of the flavoring out, and develop a shelf-stable flavored basil leaf. That's tough to find now too.
Yeah, right now it's not something you could easily find in the grocery store, so that'll be really good to have. Wonderful. Now basil is also a really good crop for Oklahoma. Not something we always think of, but it grows pretty well here in our climate.
Basil loves high temperatures. It grows well. It does want water. So if you're growing basil, you need to have some access to water.
Okay.
But so long as you give it water and cut it, you can get up to 5 to 6 cuts in a year.
That's
We've
wonderful.
seen as high yields out of basil as 60,000 pounds to the acre fresh weight.
Oh,
And
incredible.
that's over the course of the year. But very nice yields. Very nice crop for Oklahoma.
Okay, and you've been doing a little bit of research looking at ways to make this a bit more commercially viable, and maybe we could take a look at that research.
Okay.
Great. Now we traditionally transplant basil into the field or into our gardens. Is that correct? But it's not the most economically feasible?
That is correct. Production of transplants costs a lot of money per transplant, plus the shipping costs. You know, we all know what the cost of fuel has done.
Yeah, it really adds up.
Being able to directly seed basil into the field, we believe is the way a commercial operation would most likely be done.
Okay.
Most economical way to do it is seed the seed into the field rather than place the transplants into the field. The basil we were in before, we did cheat. That was transplanted.
Okay.
But I went to Brian Kahn, another professor within horticulture, and told him we have a big problem with field establishment. Can you help us work this out? And he has.
Okay. And what have you found?
What we found is shallowly planting. These are two types of shallow planting. You can get a stand on the basil. For those at home, if you're putting basil out, put it down onto the soil and just tamp it a little bit.
Okay.
And that's
That's
deep
as
enough.
deep as it needs to
That's
be.
as deep as you need to go.
Okay.
That's compared to as you go deeper and deeper into the soil, you get very poor stand establishment. And the reason for that is because basil is such a tiny seed.
It sure is, yeah.
700,000 seed per pound is
Oh,
what
wow.
some
Yeah.
of the basils are, and that's compared to maybe 2,000 seed per pound for like the coriander.
Right.
Would be closer
Oh yeah, they're much
to
larger.
that.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you for sharing some of your research. I think this is really fascinating. I love to grow herbs, and I think it's real interesting information that you've shared with us.
A little different application.
Absolutely.
We hope you've enjoyed this classic from the Oklahoma Gardening Vault. Remember, even though these tips and techniques are timeless, there's always something new to learn in the world of gardening. By subscribing to both Oklahoma Gardening and OK Gardening Classics, you'll have access to a wealth of gardening knowledge, both classic and contemporary.